Hello, my name is Sarah, and today I'll be walking through how to export a finished Unity game as a web game and how to put it up onto itch.io. So first of all, what is itch.io? Itch.io is a free web hosting service for games, and it's also a storefront. So you can actually put your game up here for money, or you can put it up here for free for people to play for free. You can also find and put assets or parts of games up here for other people to use and to buy. So it's a really good service. It's very much used by indie developers. You won't find any big AAA games on here, but you will find a lot of really good indie games, including some really famous ones. For example, I believe Pyre is on here from Supergiant, and a few other really well-known indie games. But you can also use it for a lot of very small games. People use it for experimental games, games that are free, games that are part of Patreons, and games that are sold. So it's a really lovely service. So the first thing you'll need to do is go to itch.io, and that is itch.io. And once you go there, you'll see a web page like what is shown on my screen right now. So itch.io is, like I said, a storefront, and you can browse here through games. It also has game jams where you can go and make a game in a very short amount of time. You can also find other types of things such as assets for games here, as I said. So there's a lot on here, and you can browse through it and look at games if you want to. But what we're going to talk about today is how to actually put your own game up here. So the first thing you'll need is an account. Okay, so in the top right-hand corner, you'll see, and it's hard to see on my screen because my face is in the way, but there's a login button and a register button. So if you don't have an account yet, you'll need to register. If you already have an account, you can just log in. So if you're going to register, you'll be taken to a page like this. When you pick your username, you're welcome to pick something that is silly or interesting. It doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to just be your name, right? Because the game development world is indeed a creative one and a fun one. However, please, I would recommend against picking anything with drug references, anything maybe sexual, because this is something that you would want to use for a professional situation. You may even have your portfolio on itch.io, or you may want to at least link things in your portfolio to your account on itch.io, and you really want to come off as professional in that way. So my personal itch.io, I would call Coding Dino, because that's what I go by on the internet. But of course, it's already taken because I'm registered as it already. Okay, so that's fine. You can put whatever you like there. As you see, Coding Dino is not a particularly plain business suit kind of name. It's a little bit fun, and that's absolutely fine. So then you'll need to pick a password, okay? So whatever you like there, just make sure that it is secure, and of course re-enter it. You'll need to use your email address. Make sure you pick one that you have access to, because you'll need to check it to be verified. Then when you get down here to About You, you want to tick Distributing Content, because that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be distributing your content on itch.io. Now you can still leave ticked that you're interested in playing games, but make sure you tick that you're interested in distributing content. You do not have to sign up for the newsletter. That's absolutely fine to not do if you don't want more stuff in your email inbox, but you do need to tick Accept the Terms of Service. So, put some kind of password in here, put the same password in there, and put in your email address like so. So then once you're done there, you're going to click Create Account. Now I can't do that because my account's already created, but once you've created your account, it should send you a verification email. Make sure you go through that process, and then eventually get yourself logged in. Okay, so I am now logged into the website. You can't see it again, it's underneath my face, but I have my name now displayed in the top right corner, along with an avatar that I created. You don't have to set up an avatar for yourself, but if you want to, you can. What you can do is, if you click on your name in the top right corner, you'll see quite a few options. And you can also view your own profile. Now, I have set up my profile, so I have some content here, but you may not have anything here yet to begin with. So in the top left, you can edit your profile and you can set it up as you like. This is optional. You don't need to do this. But if you're going to use itch.io for a professional purpose in the future, it would be good to have a little bit up there so that it looks like you are a real person that has some kind of information about you. Don't put anything too personal up there, especially if you're younger, but you can put information about your professional life as a game developer up there. So for example, if we look at mine, I have just some information about myself, about my career, how I came to working on games, what I do as a developer, and what I do as an educator. So I've got some information about myself up there. And then I have some collections of games that I've created. So in this case, it's collections of games for my students. Right, so once you've created your profile, if you choose to do that, the next step is to actually create your game. So you can get to that from your dashboard. And if you are on this page, if you're back on the main page, your dashboard will be up at the top here. So it'll be in the top left regardless of what page you're on. So if you click your dashboard, you'll be taken to something that looks like this. If you already have some games, they would appear in this section, but if you don't have any games that you've created yet on itch.io, this is roughly what you will see. Right. So the first thing that you need to do to create a page for your game, right, is to click Create New Project. So every game on itch.io will be a project. All right, so all you need to do is go through this one by one and fill it out. So to start off with, you'd have a title. So, you know, my game might be called My Cool Game. Yours should not be called that because it's not a very good title for a game. I could put in something else like maybe a game I'm working on right now called Pantheon. And the URL will automatically be generated based on your game. If I change my game to have multiple words in it, so maybe Pantheon of, I don't know, gods, that's what a pantheon is. The project URL hasn't updated, but it would if you had multiple words in there to begin with. You can get that project URL will have some dashes in instead, it won't have spaces. You can customize the URL to be whatever you like, but you can just leave it as whatever it generated if you like, as long as it represents your game well. Right, then you need to put in a short description or tagline. While it does say optional, you really should do it. It makes your game summarized very easily. So for Pantheon, I might put something like rebuild the world and defeat the darkness using a pantheon of gods. Right, okay, that's a game idea that my husband and I are working on right now. So there's a short summary, and that's all you need. It needs one sentence. It should fill in this box and shouldn't be any longer than the box. It needs to be a very short description of your game if you had to describe it in that short of a manner. For classification, you can usually leave it as game unless you are making something quite different. Like, for example, if it's a soundtrack for a game you're putting up here, tools, you can actually make books and things as well, or mods for other games, etc. But for the most part, this tutorial is intended for a game that you've made in Unity, so you want to put games there. For kind of project, now this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a web-based game. So if you were going to make a different kind of game, a computer-based game, one that you download and play and it's installed on your computer, then you can leave it as downloadable. But for this tutorial, I will show you how to do an HTML game. Okay, that's what Unity exports. When you build for web, Unity now exports as an HTML. Way back in the day, it used to be a different type, but now it is HTML. Okay, so do not pick Unity, the one that says Unity, that's wrong. You want to pick HTML because the newer versions of Unity make an HTML game. Okay? And then for release status, you can leave it as whatever you like. If you plan to work on this game more in the future, you can leave it as in development. If once you post it here, it's done, then leave it as released or even prototype. So for example, maybe you've made a game quickly to just try some things out, and you might work on it more, you might not, but this finished version is a prototype. You can put prototype up there, and that will, maybe if you're worried that people will think your game is not up to a good quality because it was just something that you were doing to try things out, it wasn't your full idea, the full dream for this game, put prototype, because then people will see that this is not a finished game. This is a early trial of the game, an attempt, right? So prototype is fine for that case. For pricing, you can leave it as zero or donate, paid or no payments. Now, if this is a prototype, you definitely don't want to put paid there. Zero or donate or no payments is fine. If you're doing this for a college assignment, my students, make sure you do not put paid, because I am not going to pay to play your game for your assessment. You can leave a suggested donation if you wish, as long as it is suggested only, and they can put 0 if they want. Now, for now, we're going to leave the upload section. You're going to set up your entire page first, and then we'll come back and upload the game once we've exported it from Unity. So skip the upload section for now. Just all the embed options as well. Just skip that for the moment. And then we're going to go down to details. So this is where you need to put some information about your game. What you put here is up to you, but don't leave it blank, right? I would recommend putting a summary about what your game is about, so maybe the story, and then maybe some information about how to play if it's not shown in your game. If your game doesn't have a tutorial or a how to play screen, then you should put that information into this section. So for example, the controls and how to win or how to lose. So that's what you should put here. Description of the game's story. And that should maybe be 1 to 2 paragraphs. Maybe 1 paragraph is probably enough. Paragraph. Any interesting features? And how to play if not in game, including controls. Okay, and that can be short, 1 paragraph or less. It could be a list if you like. Okay, and I'll show you an example of a finished game after this, or you can go and look at any of the games that are on itch.io. You can go on there, you can see what their pages look like. You can get an idea of what kind of things you might put in this section. For genre, put whatever you like, right? Try to pick something that matches your game as best you can. So my game that I'm describing here, this Pantheon game, is probably going to be an adventure game that will have some elements of card game. So you really can choose. It just depends. A lot of games are in multiple genres. So just pick the best you can, because then you can add tags below. So if your game is one that fits in multiple genres, I could put card game in the tags. Okay, and I could put, maybe my game has a bit of horror elements as well. Maybe it's also, a story base. You can put narrative in there. There's a lot of options in the tags you can put in. Okay. Skip Ludum Dare 46 submission unless your game is in fact for Ludum Dare 46. This will come up depending on what game jam is currently going on. They try to make it a little bit easier for you to use those game jams. You can also add App Store links, but since this is a tutorial for beginners posting their games up here, I doubt you would have an App Store link yet. But in the future, if you get an App Store page for your game, for example, Steam, Apple, Google, etc., you can link those here directly so that people can go and download your game. So you could have your itch.io page be a central place for people to see information about your game, and then they can follow these links to go to the individual stores if they would prefer to have your game maybe on mobile instead of on PC, for example. If you have something fancy that you don't consider to be an actual game, but more of an experience or something else, you can put a separate noun here instead of game, and that's how your game will be referred to. For the most part, we want to leave that blank. Okay, for community, you can choose what kinds of community interaction that your game can have. Comments is fine. If you don't want people to comment on it, you can choose disable, or a discussion board if you want something more detailed. For released games, comments and discussion boards are really good because they allow community interaction, and that's a really important thing for game developers to do. However, if you'd prefer not to deal with that, or you want to have all of your community interaction in a single place, or for whatever reason, you can disable them. Visibility and access, you won't be able to change this to public just yet, so you can leave it as draft for now, and later when we upload our game, we can change it to public. Once you've added all of that in, you're happy, we're going to click Save and View Page. Now, one thing we didn't do in that section was add screenshots, and you'll need to do that in a moment, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so this will open your game's page. You can customize it, and I will show you how. So first of all, your page will be pretty blank looking. It'll be white with this sort of grayish sides. Place for comments, nothing uploaded on the top yet because you don't have your HTML, no pictures. You'll have a bit more text here, but that's it. Once you get to this point, you'll need to move on to the customization of the look of your page. Okay, so how do you make your page look nice? itch.io has some guidelines for this. The main thing is you want to use color, pictures, and customization to make it look different compared to the every other itch.io page out there. You don't want your game to look boring. You want it to look vibrant and interesting. So how do you do this? Right, so in the top, you'll see an edit theme button. So you click that first of all, and this will open up these options on the side. And you can actually click more options to get even more for text and color. So the background color is these side panels. So if I change that to be some kind of bright green color, you can see there. Now my game isn't suitable for bright green. My Pantheon game is going to be dark purples and blues and things because it's all about creepy madness. So, and kind of old god and so it will be more purpley, and that suits my game better. This background is the background of your center area. So I'm going to make mine a kind of, let's see here, I can make it a pale purple. Or I can make it quite dark, and then I could change my text to be a brighter color. So let's do that. I'll show you how to do that. So I'll make my background black, right? It's quite grim looking. And now my text, the next one here, I'm going to make that white so that it's visible. Or I could even make it a bright like pink color if I wanted to, or make it slightly pink. You don't want to make, you want to make sure it's still easy on the eyes, easy to read. That's the number one most important thing. So please don't make bright red. So let's just do a combination that would be horrible. Let's do bright red text. Even red on black is kind of hard to read. But then if you made your background like this blue color, like that is horrible. That will hurt my eyes to read it. All right, so please try to pick a color that is easy on the eyes. These colors need to be easy to read. That's the most important thing. The looks of the page are great. That's important. That they match your game's theme is important. But it's all for nothing if your reader can't actually tell what's on the page. So it's very important to make sure that your text is quite readable. So I will choose sort of slightly pink white color, and that shows up really well in this black. And actually, if the black isn't completely black, it's actually a bit easier on the eyes as well. So I'm going to make it very slightly gray. And finally, I don't want these links to be this red color. I'm going to change them to be purple, and that looks good to me. You can still read them, and they're not everywhere. If all the text was that color, it might be overwhelming. Okay, now you can add a header of some color if you choose, right? And buttons can be a certain color, but we don't have any of those right now, so that's a bit pointless. And then you can turn on this sort of background. This center area can have an alpha so that you can see the background through it a bit. You can actually make it completely transparent if you want to, or you can give it a little bit of transparency. It actually looks quite nice. I'm going to leave mine that way. Now you can also change the font, and I would recommend doing that so that it looks a little bit different. So if you want your game, if your game is kind of more sci-fi themed or more pixely, you can change this font to be something that suits that a little bit better. So there's a pixel font here that makes it very pixelated, or this Anonymous Pro looks almost like a typewriter-y or a computer program font. And then of course there's just serif and sans serif, so, and some basics there. So it's up to you which you pick. You can choose the size of the font to be tiny or quite large. It's up to you. And there are some more options. You can change a header font if you like. Now you can put images for the banner at the top, for a background, and an embedded background. That's absolutely not required, but if you have something you think would look quite nice on the sides or along the top, you can do that. Now your game will be along the top, so a header along the top isn't actually that important for a web game because your game itself is the header, right? But you can add that. Now what I do recommend doing, and this is important, to make sure your screenshots show up when we add them, you should change the layout for your screenshots to be sidebar, and that will ensure that they appear whenever we add the screenshots. Okay, when you're done adjusting this, make sure you hit save. If you don't hit save, none of what you've done will save, and that would be very sad. So click hit save there at the bottom, save whenever you're done. Now, if you would like to see an example, I will bring one up here in a moment, and you can see what a finished page might look like. This is an example of a finished game. It's one that I am currently working on right now. You can see there's a header at the top for the game showing the title of the game. You can see that there's a background image, and I've customized the colors and the font so that it's very different from your just blank page that you start with. You can also see there are screenshots and a video down the side. And then I've also put in screenshots and images in the main section here in the center. So it's not just text. You can actually put screenshots in the center and even animated GIFs. Okay, you can also see that there are headings, and instead of using just normal text, I used images for the headings because it helps break them up and look a little bit nicer. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of information here. Now this is a game that's not available yet, and it doesn't have controls on here, but it talks a lot about the overall theme and story of the game. This is a bit more about the story. Here we see information about some of the features of the game, the strategy, the in-game action portion, the overall exploration, a bit more about the story and world building, and lastly, some links here for people to find out more information about the game. Okay, so overall, you can have a lot of information about your game, and it can be colorful and presented in a really nice way. You can see there's screenshots along the side. And then there's a trailer that they can watch if they choose to. So all of that is what I would recommend doing if you are creating when you're setting up your game, to try to make it look nice. There's some other really good examples up here. So I will bring one of those up next and you can take a look at it. Okay, this is Pyre. So this is not my game. This is a very well-known indie game, and it is a for sale indie game. You can see here that you have to pay for it to play it. It's $20 US, and they have a really beautiful banner along the top that actually combines with their background below, so that it looks like one big picture. And you can see here they have quite a lot of, they normally would have pictures here. For something they've not loaded, I'm not quite sure why, but they would normally have pictures along there, and they have their screenshots on the side as well as a trailer at the top as well. And they have an overview at the very top, and they talk about key features in the game. And then lastly, they have some downloads here and a comment section, as we talked about before. So it's a really another good example of a game that is using itch.io well. Okay, so I know that if this is your first game, your page is not going to look like this. Okay, I understand that. However, this is what you want to shoot for in the end. So when you're starting out, make something much simpler. But in the end, this is what you can do. This is a good example of the best you can do with itch.io. So we talked about adding screenshots to your game, and I didn't show you how to do that yet. So that's the last step in sort of making your itch.io page look really nice before we actually export our game and put it up there. Okay, so to add a screenshot, annoyingly, it's not in the theme section. It's not in where you usually design the look of your page. It's in the edit game section. So click on edit game, and on the right-hand side, you have a couple things. You have a cover image, and you have screenshots. And also a place where you can put a trailer. So if you have a game trailer up on YouTube, you can put it there. For early games, for your first game, you probably are not going to have a trailer, and that's absolutely fine. That's not required. But I would highly recommend including both a cover image and at least 3 screenshots. They recommend 3 to 5. Well, how do you do that? How do you get a good cover image and a screenshot? So for the cover image, ideally, this is going to be a nicely designed image that would show in a collection for your game, or it would show if, for example, you were to go to the main page and your game showed up on the storefront. So what does that look like? Let me open up my collections here. Now you can see these first 2 on the left do not have cover images, and they don't look very good in this collection. They don't show up very well. They look very default. These next few do have cover images, and it makes them look a bit better. Okay, this one doesn't. So you can see the ones that have cover images are just better, period. They just show up much nicer. And then some have cover images that aren't that great. They don't have the title of the game, or they don't have a very good representation of the game. They're still better than nothing, but it'd be better to have a little bit more. So I think a really good one is this SPCE one here. It has the title really clearly labeled and a kind of interesting background. Let's see if we can find some other really good ones along here. So this one would be good, but you can't see the entire title, so make sure that it's visible in the square for your cover image. This one here is quite good. It doesn't have the title, but it's still very eye-catching, so that's a good one. This rewrite one is pretty good. This Chrono Time Twisted is obviously just the title screen of the game, but it still looks good. If you can remove this start section, that might look nicer. So there's a lot of good examples there. So the summary here is put in a cover image. Even if it's not great, it's still better than nothing. And if you can get one that looks good in the square, shows the name of your game, shows some eye-catching image, that is best. So that was what goes here. You just click upload, it will pop up and you can choose what image to upload. And then for your screenshots, the same way. You click add screenshot and you just find the image you want to upload. So how do you get these screenshots? How do you get this image and these screenshots? The easiest way is using snipping tool. So if you have your Unity game open, like so, and say I want to just get a screenshot, I want to get a screenshot of like my character. And that's kind of all I want. I just want this character as the title. So what I could do is if I open up Windows and I type in snip, and then I just click on snipping tool, should appear in the Windows Windows menu. If you open up snipping tool, you'll get something that looks a bit like this. So if you just click new, you'll get a grayed out background, and then you can select what you want, like so. And once you've selected what you want on there, that's the image that will pop up. So this is just my little guy here. He's a nice little square. I'm going to save this. I'm going to just put it on my desktop, and I'm going to call it, what do we call this background here? It's called a cover image. So I'm going to call this the cover image, cover.png. And now if I go here to upload cover image and I go to the desktop and I click cover, then my cover image is uploaded. Now it's a little pixelated. You really should get a bigger image, right? This is just an example. A larger image, better resolution would be recommended. So it says it really should be 315 by 250, and they recommend 630 by 500. That's their recommended resolution. They don't want it to be too detailed because this is intended to be a small image on the screen. It's not meant to be full size, but it still needs to look nice, even on, for example, a really high resolution phone screen or something like that. So that's all well and good, but then how do we do screenshots? The exact same way. So say I wanted to screenshot the entire game. I go back here. I would press play in Unity, get myself to a situation that I liked the screenshot of. So maybe I'll collect a few of my coins, get hurt a little bit so it looks like something's happened. I can then press pause in Unity up here. I can go to my snipping tool. I can click new, select a large area of the screen, try to get everything in the actual screen preview, but not the rest of the Unity UI, and then release, and you can see the snipping tool has now gotten a very nice screenshot of my game. I can then save this as screenshot 1 and save, unclose it. And if I go back to itch.io, I can then add a screenshot and choose screenshot 1, and it's now been added here. Okay, so you can continue doing that. You can add we can add as many screenshots as you want, but I would recommend between 3 and 5. And you can include things like your title screen or even your win or game over screen to make it a little bit more interesting. If you have multiple levels, of course, maybe include screenshots of 1 or 2 of the levels to try to make your page as interesting as possible. Okay. Once you've done that, make sure to click save, because if you don't save it, it won't save your work. Okay, with that saved, your itch.io page is ready to go. Let's go ahead and click view page to see what it looks like with the screenshots added. You can see the screenshot is there. Now by default, your cover image won't show here. It'll only show whenever you go to find out more about, maybe you see this game in a list somewhere. So for example, I'm going to click, you can't see because it's underneath my face, but I'm going to click in the top right corner on my profile. And whenever someone goes to my profile, if my game was public, that game would appear over here on the right hand side. Now we haven't made it public yet, so it won't appear there, but if it was public, it would show up there as a game that I have released, and that's where that cover image would come into play. Okay, so the next step will be to actually build our game in Unity and export it and finally upload it here. So let's do that. Okay, I've got Unity open now, and all we need to do, I'm going to stop it, right? It's still running from when we took our screenshot. All we need to do is open up our build settings and change a few details. So if we go up into File and we choose Build Settings, All right, the first thing we need to do right now, we are looking at our platforms on the left-hand side here. Our platforms are set to be PC, Mac, and Linux standalone. That means like an installed application that you run after downloading it onto your computer. That is not what we want in this case. We want a website-based game. So to do that, we're going to click on WebGL, okay? And we're going to go ahead and click Switch Platform in the bottom right here, Switch Platform. And it's going to take a minute. It's going to have to re-import all of our images and update our assets and our scripts to make sure that it works on this platform. Depending on your computer, this may take longer, or it might not take very long at all. So my computer's pretty fast. It won't take too long to do this. The things that are going to take the longest is the music, because it has to re-import that. If your game has any VO files, those will take ages because they have to re-encode. Okay, so my game has finished changing platforms. So at the bottom here, you will see that there are some errors that popped up. These are just Unity editor errors, and we can go ahead and clear them. They're not actual errors with our game. It's just an error with the Unity editor. It's a bit hard to tell what's what when you're starting out, so I understand it's a bit confusing, but it happened right after that. If we click clear, if the errors persist, then you know that it's a problem with your game that you will have to fix. But if it's just something that appeared only whenever you change platforms, when you click clear, they go away, you know it's just a temporary issue with Unity's editor. Okay, so we have now switched platforms, but we do need to make sure that the right scenes are in the build. Now, I already had the right scenes up here because I was showing in a previous tutorial how to switch scenes. The only thing that's not up here that I would expect to see maybe in one of your games is a title screen. So it's good to have a title screen to be there when the player first starts, so they don't just start right in the middle of the action, maybe get killed by an enemy right away, for example. So you could put a title screen at the top. And remember to add screens. You simply find your screen in your project. So for example, here's a bunch of screens, and you drag that screen into your build menu like so. Now, I'm not going to do that because that's just a random screen. That isn't what I actually want. But if you had your title screen, you could put that up there. The order on this list does matter, at least in that the very first one needs to be the thing you actually want to display first. So in this case, a title screen, or if you don't have a title screen, level 1. Okay? You can have multiple levels if you want to, as long as in your code you have the code for switching between them. So that isn't going to be done in this tutorial. I've talked about that in previous tutorials. Okay, so assuming you have your scenes set up, assuming you have now clicked on WebGL, we need to alter some of the settings for WebGL's player. This is the thing that's going to actually, this isn't the player as in the person playing the game, it's the player as in the thing on the computer that is allowing the game to be played, almost like a music player. That's what we're talking about here. So it's very confusing because it's the same word, but when we say player settings in Unity from the build menu, we're talking about the window or application that is playing the game. That's what player settings means in this case. Okay, so let's click player settings in the bottom left-hand corner. And that will open up a new window. Mine's opened up on the wrong monitor, so let me just drag it over there. It's a big old window, so let's just put it somewhere where you can see everything at once, like so. You could put it in the inspector section or somewhere else. I just put it in the middle there because it's most obvious. And you can close your build menu for now. I'm just going to close it using that X there. Okay, so here's player settings. So what do we want to do? We want to change a couple small things here. We're going to go ahead and change the resolution. So if we're in the WebGL settings right now, and there's a bunch of different sections here, we're going to click on resolution and presentation. Okay, so resolution and presentation. And we're going to change that to be a particular canvas width and height that I feel works well on itch.io. Now you can adjust this to be what you like, but this is just what I feel works the best. So I'm going to leave it at 960 as the width, but for the height, to make it a 16 by 9, which matches most monitors and is often what people have been working with in Unity, I'm going to change this from 960 and 600 to 960 and 540. All right, so 960 and 540. That's what I would recommend using on your itch.io exported WebGL build. Okay. That's all you need to change on your player settings. There's a lot of other information here, but you can leave them as they are. So let's go back into our build settings. That's File and Build Settings. Okay, in build settings, make double sure all your scenes are in your build. Make sure you're on the WebGL platform. And finally, we're going to click Build. So this is going to take quite a while, so be aware of that. Click Builds, and this is going to pop up. Let's make a new folder called Builds. So this is inside your Unity project. And then inside the Builds folder, I'm going to make another new folder for this particular build. So you can call it your game's name. So like I was saying earlier, if your game was called Pantheon, I'm going to call it version 1.0. I'm going to make that V little because usually version for versions is little. Okay, so Pantheon version 1.0. That'll be a folder that gets created. And finally, I'm going to go inside there. So you want to make, it's very, very important to make sure you have a blank folder that you are building your web game in, because this is going to spit out a bunch of different files and you want to make sure they're all together. Okay, so Pantheon version 1.0, and I'm going to just select that folder. And once I've done that, it's going to build, and it's going to take a little while, especially if you have a lot of graphics and audio, and especially if you have any video files. So you're basically going to have to sit here and wait for a little bit. Okay, so that took about 3 or 4 minutes to finish building for me. So if you have a slower computer, it may have taken longer. Once it's built, you're going to get this pop-up, or you probably will get this pop-up about a security alert, and that's for Node.js. This is because Unity is trying to run your game. You don't need to run the game right now anyway, so just go ahead and click cancel so you don't have to run the game. We're going to upload it to a website. It's something about the way that the website works. It won't run a WebGL content directly from your computer. You have to simulate a web server for that to work. And it's a lot more complicated than what we need to do, because we can just upload it to itch.io and see if it works. Okay, so cancel is all you need to do on that window that pops up. So once you've hit cancel on that pop-up, you will see this window open. This is just a Windows Explorer, and it will have the area where it built your game. So in here, you'll see a few things. You'll see this build, you'll see template data, and you'll see index.html. You don't want to change any of that, and it won't help to open index.html because Windows will just tell you it can't run because it's not on a web server. So what you'll need to do is go up a level, go out back to the folder above this one. So you can do that by just looking in the address bar for this folder and clicking on the next section up. So for me, that was the builds folder. And now I can see the folder that I was just in, which was the Pantheon version 1.0. Now remember, yours shouldn't be called Pantheon, it should be called your game's name. So change that to your game's name if it isn't already as such. Once you've got this folder named how you want it, you're going to right click that folder, and you'll get a menu here, and you're going to choose Send To, and you're going to click on Compressed Zipped Folder. Basically, the way that itch.io expects your folder to work is that it's going to be this compressed folder. So Compressed Zipped Folder, and you can just leave it as the name of your game.zip. So Pantheon version 1.0.zip. That's all ready to go and upload to itch.io. Okay. So now that that's all ready to go, we just need to go back to itch.io and we'll be able to upload our game. Okay, here we are back at our itch.io webpage. If you click on Edit Game in the top there, you'll be taken to the area where you can edit your game and upload it. Okay, so the first thing you'll want to do is go down to the Upload section, and we're going to click on Upload Files. You now need to go and find your game. So mine is buried a bit. I need to go and locate it. You need to find where it is in your file system. If you're not sure where you put your game and you still have Unity open, it's easy to find, right? So if you have Unity open and you go up to this Assets folder and you right click your Assets folder in Unity and you click on Show in Explorer, it will show you where your game is. So mine happens to be in the Documents drive, in a section called GitHub, in the name of my project there, and then a couple folders deep. And then inside there, I've got my builds folder that I made. So if you're not sure where you put that stuff, you should be able to find it from there. So back in here, I can now find that. I can know it's my documents. It's in my folder called GitHub. It's in my Unity Playground templates and builds. And there it is, finally, my Pantheon. So I'm going to click on Pantheon version 1.0.0 zip. And again, yours should be named after your game. Shouldn't be called Pantheon. And then click open. Now that will upload and it will figure out what it's doing there. So where it says executable, we're going to leave that alone, but we need to change this. Right now it thinks it's going to be like a Windows file, and that's not what we want. Instead, we're going to choose this file will be played in the browser. So if you click that, it will change to not talking about executables anymore. That whole section will go away, and it will realize that it's meant to be a web game. Okay, then we're going to choose embed options, and embed in page is fine, but we're going to we'll change it from manually set size to auto detect size. And this will make sure that the window that it creates for your game is the right size. It will correctly detect it from Unity. From here, we can leave everything else alone. You can take a full screen button if you want your game to be able to be played in full screen. That's absolutely fine. We don't need scroll bars. You don't need you may want to automatically start when the game loads. Definitely don't tick that if you don't have a title screen. But if you have a title screen anyway, you could make it automatically start. That's up to you. And you can make it mobile friendly if you like. Okay, so let's go ahead and click Save. If you did make a mobile game, I'll just say make sure you click mobile friendly. All right, so if you're happy with that, you can click Save, and then you want to view your page. Now, mine is now have a little loading bar at the top there, and now it's loaded, and it will let me try to run the game, and it's automatically worked out the size that this should be based on how big my game actually was set to export as from Unity. Okay, so this is my game opening up. It should open to level 1. There we go. And now I can go through this door. See, I think my game level 1 wasn't quite set up properly, but hopefully yours has a bit more to it than this. If there are problems, just go back into Unity and check them. So if we want to, we can go into Unity and see what my level 1 was actually set up as, because I think the scene that's open in Unity right now is not level 1. It's a tutorial scene of some kind. So if I look here, you can see that it's tutorial score. So my level 1 just didn't have as much in it as the tutorial score section did. Make sure you have actually exported the correct scenes, because if you haven't, you will get something like what I saw there. But the important thing is that the game is playable, it's there, and it works. You can also click the full screen button if you want to see the game in full screen. Right, okay. So from there, you now have a Unity game that's working in itch.io, which is excellent. But there's still a couple things you may want to add. So if you are creating this game for one of my classes, I'll also need you to include your source code. And how do you do that? Well, there's a couple ways. If you're using something like GitHub or Bitbucket to keep track of your game's code, and you have uploaded all of your code to GitHub or Bitbucket, you can link those. Okay, that's possible. Or you can, if you prefer, just upload the source code as a big document. You can also include source code even if you're not making this game for one of my classes, but you want other people to be able to see your code. For example, in a portfolio, that might be a good thing to do. Some game jams require you to reveal your source code. That's something you can do with this as well. Or if you just want to make it available to other people for them to see how you've done something, that can be a really nice thing for beginners to be able to see. Now, of course, you probably don't want to reveal your source code if you're trying to sell the game, because then someone else could just download the source code, rebuild it, and upload it wherever they like. So you probably shouldn't do that for games you're trying to sell. But for games that you are just using to learn, share your source code. Let other people see how you've done things. It can be really helpful for people. Okay, so how do you do that? You would go into Edit Game, and down where there are files here, you would upload another file. Now, what would you upload? Well, you should upload your game. So the first thing to do is to close Unity, because you're going to upload the whole Unity project. So close your Unity project, first of all. All right, bye. Just closing. Mine's taking a little while to close. Then you're going to go into your Unity project in Windows, and I'm in the builds folder now. I need to go out to the folder that's containing my project, which is this one here. And I'm going to right click that folder, and I'm going to choose send to compressed or zipped folder. And it's going to take a while because my folder has a lot of images and sounds in it. So once that gets all compressed, then what you will do is rename it to indicate that it is source code, and then you're going to upload it. Okay, that's mine all compressed, and I'm going to now change this to say Pantheon source code. There we go. So there's the source code for my game. I've noted where it is. It's in Documents, GitHub, Unity Playground Updates, Pantheon source code. Excellent. And then I go back into itch.io where I'm editing my game. I click Upload Files, and I go to the place where I've put my source code. Now, when I upload that, it's important to note that this one is not the game itself. You need to make sure you indicate that to people. So one of the options will be source code from the dropdown once it's uploaded. Okay, mine is completed. It's uploaded. It did take a few minutes. So once you've uploaded that, you're going to change this executable on the source code to source code so that it's clear that that is what that is. Now, if you have a file on GitHub or Bitbucket that you would like to put here instead of uploading the zip file, you can click on Add External File, put in the link, state what kind of file it is, and change the display name to be something like source code or Bitbucket source code. You can then change it to be a source code here, and then you can change the URL to be your Bitbucket URL. That is only if you are using Bitbucket and you already have all of your source code uploaded there. I would recommend doing that instead of uploading the zip file, because then if you make changes to your source code, you don't need to upload a new file for the source code anyway. It will be automatically updated through your Bitbucket. You will still need to upload new builds of the game if you do make any changes. I'm going to delete this extra file here though, because I don't have a Bitbucket for this project. So then, once you've done that, there's only one more step, one final step, and that's to go to the very bottom and change this visibility and access from draft or restricted to public. Now, if you absolutely do not want this game seen by anyone else, you can change it to restricted. And if you're handing this in as an assignment, then you need to make sure you maybe allow a password or something else, and you tell your lecturer your password. But don't be embarrassed. Make it public. It's okay that your first game is not a AAA game quality. That's normal, right? I recommend making this game public and sharing it with your friends and family, because then they can see what you've been working on, right? It's okay that it is a little bit rough around the edges. It's okay even if it is completely crap. It's okay. That's how you learn, right? A very famous dog once said, sucking at something is the first step to being kind of good at it. And that is the case. Okay, so I recommend sharing your work even if it's not great, because that is how you learn, and you can get feedback from people. And I think you should still be very proud of what you've done. If you've made a game, if you've finished a game, that is an achievement. That is amazing. Most people in the world don't make games. They don't know how to make a game. So if you have finished something, even if it is not great, that is truly something to be proud of. So make it public, share it, or give me a password if you're uploading it to my, as an assessment for me. Let's give me a password for it. Once you're done with that, make sure to click save. If you don't click save, none of the stuff you've just done will be saved. And view your page to make sure that it's all there. So what you should have now is your game at the top, screenshots down the side, and a download button here for the source code. Okay? Hopefully that was a good introduction on how to get your game up onto itch.io. Hopefully it helps people. And make sure that you, once you do get this, just how to share it with people. You just need to get the URL from the top of the screen. So just go up to the top of the screen, click on your URL there, and give it out. So it should be your username.itch.io/your game name. That's what your URL will typically be. So I can copy that now, and I can give it to people, and they can play it. Okay? Congratulations on finishing your game. Best of luck. Welcome to put your game in the comments of this video if you want to share it. And if you have any questions about this process and you need help getting something working on itch.io or in exporting from Unity, you can ask that as well in the comments, and I'll do my best to help you out. Thanks very much, and good luck with your game development.